ever imagine holding a beating heart in your hand,
Yeah.
tracing the delicate network of nerves, all without needing a medical license?
It's funny you should mention that because we're actually looking at
Yeah.
3D printed anatomical models.
It's no longer science fiction.
Exactly. And it's really pushing the boundaries of medical education.
Yeah.
And this research study that we're diving into today
Yeah.
reveals some really surprising student reactions.
So we're talking about med students
Yeah.
swapping out those formaldehyde-infused labs for something a little more high-tech.
Precisely. This study looks at the use of 3D printed anatomical models, specifically of the upper limb,
Okay.
and how they stack up against traditional learning tools,
Okay.
like cadavers and plastinated specimens.
So we're talking more than just those plastic skeletons
Right.
hanging in biology classrooms.
Yeah.
What makes these 3D printed models so special?
These models are incredibly detailed, and they're often multicolored with different textures
Oh, wow.
to mimic real tissue.
Okay.
So students can hold a model of a hand, for example,
Mm-hmm.
and actually feel the difference between a bone, a muscle, a tendon.
That's amazing. That tactile element, that's something you wouldn't get from a textbook
Right.
or even a computer simulation.
And that's exactly what struck the researchers in this study.
Okay.
The students weren't just intrigued by the technology, they were really engaged by the ability to interact
Yeah.
with these models in such a hands-on way.
So they could actually move the muscles around, see how they
Yeah.
connect to the bones, trace the pathways of arteries.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Imagine being able to rotate a shoulder joint in your hand and seeing how each muscle contributes to the range of motion.
Wow.
That level of interactivity can be incredibly powerful for understanding complex spatial relationships.
It makes you wonder if there's something about that physical interaction,
Yeah.
that sense of touch,
Mm-hmm.
that enhances learning.
It's fascinating, isn't it?
Yeah.
There's a growing body of research on haptic feedback and memory.
Oh, really?
The idea that our sense of touch plays a vital role in how we process and retain information.
So not just seeing,
Yeah.
but feeling the intricacies of the human body, that must have made quite an impression on these students.
Yeah.
But how did they feel about these high-tech models
Right.
compared to
Sure.
working with a real cadaver?
Right.
Did they want to ditch the traditional methods altogether?
That's where it gets interesting. The students' reactions were a bit more nuanced
Ooh.
than just embracing the new and rejecting the old.
Okay.
While they were clearly impressed by the 3D printed models,
Okay.
their feedback reveals a deeper understanding of the nuances of anatomical learning.
So they saw the value in both,
They did.
the high-tech and the traditional.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
It is. The students really appreciated the precision and visual clarity of the 3D printed models.
Okay.
They found the color coding really helpful, actually,
Yeah.
in distinguishing different types of tissue, which is something that can be challenging even with a real cadaver.
I can imagine, yeah.
Yeah.
Having those very distinct colors for nerves, muscles, arteries. It sounds like it would make the learning process much clearer.
Exactly.
Mm.
But where their feedback takes a fascinating turn
Yeah?
is in their desire to treat these models with respect,
Oh, really?
almost as if they were real anatomical specimens.
Hold on. So they wanted to treat a 3D print with the same reverence as a real donated human body.
It's pretty amazing, yeah.
That's pretty
It
profound.
really is. And it speaks to the power of these models to evoke a sense of awe and wonder about the human body.
Wow.
Even though they knew that these were artificial creations,
Right.
the students instinctively felt a sense of responsibility and respect for what they represented.
That's fascinating. It really highlights how these models are more than just tools, They're sparking an emotional connection,
Yeah.
a sense of ethical responsibility, even in a lab setting.
Precisely. And this reverence wasn't just about acknowledging the model itself,
Okay.
but also the knowledge it represented and the potential impact on future patient care.
So it's like they understood that even though they were working with a model,
Yeah.
the lessons they were learning had real-world weight.
Yes.
It's almost like a sculptor respecting their materials,
Mm-hmm.
knowing that what they create will have a lasting impact.
Exactly.
That's a great analogy. And speaking of impact,
Yes.
the students had some insightful feedback for the researchers,
He did.
highlighting areas for improvement in future iterations of these models.
Of course.
Like
Yes,
what
sir.
what did they want to see in the next generation of anatomical models?
Well, one suggestion was to refine the color differentiation even further. So, for example, having distinct colors for tendons and muscles
Yeah.
would make their relationship easier to visualize.
Okay, so get even more granular with it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They also wanted to see the arteries depicted as hollow structures
Oh, okay.
to better reflect their function and real-life appearance.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah. To make it even more realistic.
Exactly.
So they weren't afraid to get into the nitty-gritty to really push for even more realism and detail.
Exactly. And this feedback is crucial
Yeah.
because if 3D printed models are going to revolutionize medical training,
Right.
they need to be not just good,
Yeah.
but exceptional.
Right.
The students also envisioned using these models beyond the anatomy lab,
Oh, really?
particularly in communicating with patients.
Interesting. Now we're talking about using a 3D printed heart to explain a valve defect to a patient. Yeah.
Or showing a model of a knee before replacement surgery.
You're spot on.
Wow.
The students recognize the potential for these models to bridge the gap between complex medical concepts
Yeah,
and a patient's understanding of their own body.
that could be revolutionary.
It really could.
Imagine a world where patients can truly visualize what's happening inside their own bodies,
Yeah.
instead of just hearing medical jargon they might not understand.
It's about empowering patients, meeting them on their level with tangible representations of what might otherwise seem abstract and intimidating.
It's like the difference between looking at a map and actually walking a path.
Right?
You know,
Yeah.
that firsthand experience, even with a model, can make all the difference in understanding and decision-making.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And that brings us to the broader implications of this research. Okay.
We're not just talking about improving medical education,
Right. Right.
but potentially transforming the entire patient experience.
So 3D printing in the medical field, it's not just about futuristic labs and high-tech gadgets. It's about
It's a bit of
deeper learning,
deeper learning, yeah.
better communication,
Absolutely.
and ultimately better healthcare for everyone.
You've hit the nail on the head.
It's inspiring to think about the possibilities.
Right.
And it all circles back to those students,
Yeah.
holding a 3D printed model,
Mm-hmm.
feeling the weight of responsibility in their hands.
Yeah.
Literally
It's powerful stuff.
powerful stuff.
And it underscores a very crucial point,
What's that?
that even as technology advances,
Mm-hmm.
the human element remains at the heart of medicine.
This deep dive has been quite revealing.
It has.
We've explored the potential of 3D printing to revolutionize medical education, enhance patient communication, and even reshape how we think about our own bodies.
Pretty amazing.
But before we wrap up, there's one more thing to consider.
Yeah.
The real question is, what will you do with this knowledge?
That's a good question.
As you encounter advancements in 3D printing in healthcare or any other field, remember the students in this study.
Yeah.
Their insights remind us that the true power of technology lies not just in its capabilities, but in how we choose to use it.
Well said.
So the next time you see a news story about 3D printing, think about the potential it holds, not just for creating objects, but for shaping understanding, improving lives, and building a healthier future.
I love it.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep diving deep.